I work for the city of Vancouver. My job is detective, and then I have some other collateral assignments. We've been married for 16 years, almost 17. Wyatt and Olivia are biological. We've adopted Jack, pretty typical family, I think.
And we adopted Jack. We got him when he was 11 months old. I remember getting the phone call, and the social worker told me a little bit about him and said, and he was born with a club foot. Well, my husband John was born with club feet. And that was just like, I got off the phone and told John, and this is our little boy.
One of the aspects of my job that has been so heartbreaking is to not only see children in pretty desperate circumstances, but be a person responsible for removing them from a house, from their parents, and putting them into the very system we were now going to involve ourselves with and adopt a child out of.
And I remember when we went and met him for the first time, and just that immediate feeling of, yep, this is it. And we brought him home and knew that he was our little boy.
So I was pretty aware of conditions, physical conditions, but completely unaware of the emotional side of things.
To have that bond that, a mom and dad have with their child, I had that feeling that I did with my biological kids. There was no difference whatsoever. I love him the same. When we got him, there was no fear in him. He was so happy, and other than when I would hold him, so I thought nothing of it when he wanted down all the time and didn't want me to hold him, or once there got to a certain point of the bottle feeding, he just wanted down. But as he got older, to where he was talking, there started, you think, oh, this is terrible twos, and you try and discipline in the age appropriate way, and wow, this isn't working.
Figure out, is this a kid being a kid, a 2 or 3 year old kid that really we don't know what he dealt with for the first 10 or 11 months of his life? Or is this another issue?
I would go to the grocery store, and he'd be sitting in the cart, and he'd want something, and I'd say, no, you don't always get what you want. And but he would just absolute scream. He'd hit me. He would, tell me to shut up.
You'd ask him to pick up a toy he had been playing with that he just left laying around, and it would be a drop down, throw a fit, out of control, and what are you doing?
When we don't talk like that in our home, and so just these odd things, well, 2 went away, 3 came and went. It's like, wow, these issues are getting worse and worse.
His anger, his just absolute obstinance and unwillingness to cooperate, running away, and you couldn't even drive somewhere. He'd unbuckle, and you'd have to pull over, and there's so much to deal with. Drink your milk. You asked for it, now drink it. No. And it'd get pushed over. And they are, spill the milk, clean it up, and within 5 minutes there's something else.
Just defiant, a lot of anger, to where he would take off his seatbelt in the car, run around in the car, scream at our carpool kids.
He evolved at a much more rapid pace than we could resolve the problems. So we'd figure out a way to solve a problem, and he'd defeat that. And he's 3. That's pretty daunting. He's 3. And it became pretty evident that he's a smart little boy, especially when it comes to solving problems to get his way, to hit that control lever. And he did.
We couldn't ever have a date night or that time together. He always had to be with us, because I feared what would happen next.
The behaviors, even though they don't sound significant, they're extremely disruptive. So how do you get through your day if you're by yourself?
I didn't want to get out of bed because I knew what I was going to have to face that day.
So those behaviors just became ever present, and it became a larger than life entity in our house. And it was just behaviors from a 3-year-old. And it essentially controlled and ruled our house. Here's a 3 or 4-year-old little boy who, it's like, what are you? What is going on in that little mind? You could see that he's very angry. But why? They're not sick. They're not crazy because they have very normal behaviors and they're great at times. But it's when we tell them this, or we ask them to do this, or this circumstance happens, they fall off the cliff, and it's crazy. So how do you figure that out? Where do you go for help?
So I went to our family practice doctor and said, I've got some problems here and I don't know what's wrong. And what it came down to was he told me, well, I could send you to a therapist, but you'd be leaving with a handful of prescriptions for pills. And a parent that tells me timeouts don't work tells me that you don't have the time or the patience to do it the right way. And so basically I was being told that I wasn't parenting correctly and I left very upset and mad because I wasn't going to give my child pills. I knew that wasn't it. There was something more wrong.
What a 2 or 3-year-old little boy can do. Yeah, it'll change your perspective on life.
I wanted him to have life, and this wasn't a life to be lived in that constant anger and fear himself, anxiety. I mean, the physical toll it took on him and trying to figure that out. Taking him to the doctor all the time for a mouth filled with canker sores constantly, and him always saying my tummy hurts, so test after test. My biggest fear was making it to the next day, and my fear was having to give up on him. I didn't want to give up. But when we had those good moments of, that tender look, which did come sometimes.
I could see many people becoming hopeless. And every time I hear that somebody has just gotten to that almost breaking point, it just breaks my heart. But I understand it.
Because for a child to literally want to kill you and say, I'm going to take daddy's gun and shoot you, and then I'm going to take a knife and stab you in the heart and pull it out because then you'll bleed to death. That's pain. And to live with that pain all your life, that's not living.
It's very scary. Uncontrollable.
Exhausting. Physically, mentally, emotionally exhausting. Hell.
Living with a rad kid, it's actually surviving.